You see, look at this here. This part of this William Prim book. I've actually just found the first. I've just screenshotted a part of it, which is probably the most significant writing that I've read, blatantly stating privileges in this book. Although I've not finished reading all of the section yet. But it says here, this is worth noting, because I've saved some things to the side for Suella Braverman's case with her driving. There's quite a lot actually spoken about that, and also it does mention speedily attendance of Parliament. But here it's saying that about Westminster, who dress meet for members and those a lodgemen should have privilege of Parliament. Yet every waterman, hackney coachman, sedan man that row or carry them to and fro from Parliament, although not their menial servants, who never had nor ought to have privilege, right? So it's saying that basically, servants of members of the House of Lords and servants of MPs are entitled to privileges, but they've got to be like their official servants, It's interesting case for studies. Lord Stafford, who used to have like a band of entertainers who worked for him. He had kind of like a band of entertainers. He's called Lord Stafford, which is quite amusing. Like they're his staff, and through the petition archives, I've found quite a lot of cases where they were claiming privileges, and people were trying to sue them. I don't know whether he was like, they were using the privilege in order to provoke people or buy things on the tick and not pay for them and things like that. But there's definitely some mischief going on with that Lord Stafford's entertainers company that he had. And that's actually from reading the petitions themselves. What are these cases that have been brought? What were the people claiming or talking about themselves? So I've actually already learned quite a lot from reading the archives. So this is saying that, basically, if an MP catches a taxi into Parliament, this is claiming that the taxi driver shouldn't have privileges of Parliament, right? But if he had like a private chauffeur, permanent chauffeur, because this is like hackney coachman. But that's not necessarily like if he's got a full-time servant, right, who worked with him all the time, who like took him into Parliament or drove him there. That's like different from just sort of like flagging a cab down, if you know what I mean. Why I've started recording now and why I'm saying this at this exact moment is just I just want to note that this book's probably a lot more well known than people make out, and it's probably a lot more well known to people of Parliament in the past who have researched the subject, although they probably won't let up on that. But that part I've just read there that says that for every the common self, every tavern cook in and about Westminster who dress means for the members and those that lodgemen should have privilege of Parliament. Yea, every waterman, a hackney coachman, a sedan man that row or carry them to and from the Parliament, though not their menial servants, who never had nor ought to have privilege. Well, that immediately, if you think of the Road Traffic Act or the Road Traffic Regulation Act, whichever one it is, I forget now. I did used to know it off by heart, but one of them, I think it's the Road Traffic Regulation Act actually, the one that's got like all the illegal road signage in it and everything, and the offence for speeding, observing the speed limit, right? So it is a defence in law for anyone if they're working for an employer right, that they can use it as it is a legal defence made in law that if an employer pushes them or orders them to do something to a schedule, right, it can be used in defence in law, right? So that would include this here. So what it's saying is that what it's effectively saying is that if you've got if it's the acknowledged servant, right, because obviously if you've got a full-time servant, then why wouldn't it be them who are driving you into Parliament, whether it's a coach or car or whatever, right? But what they're saying is if you just flag a taxi down, a random taxi driver or whatever, he's not automatically falling under privilege. So that would be a explanation, or at least a reason for, what happens if an MP is late for Parliament, for example, and, he said to the taxi driver, come and hurry up, and then he got prosecuted for speeding. Then, is that fair? And, should he be under privilege or not? Well, it wouldn't need to be under privilege if there was a defence created in law for that situation, which would be that if an employer is, ordering you to drive fast, like I think there was a case with Noel Gallagher, wasn't there, when he wasn't even driving, but he took some points for. I think that it was his car, but someone else was driving it, but they didn't give evidence, and then because it was registered to Noel Gallagher, I think that he got the points even though he wasn't driving, right? Because he didn't say who was driving like that, right? Now, so in the when they invented the Road Traffic Act and the Road Traffic Regulation Acts, therefore, where did they get that idea from? I would like to propose or make a strong opinion that it's likely that from reading actually this book, from that little part of it there, I won't be surprised if someone in the House of Lords knocking around in the corridors or somewhere in the chambers or in the shadow secretary for whatever knew that, and possibly even, Prince Philip, we don't know, someone has likely read this part of this little bit here, I would have thought, and it could have been the basis behind, what should we do? Can that person have a defence? Well, they created a defence in law, therefore, if someone is driving a vehicle or a taxi or a coach and their employer does command them to, do something, then they've got a defence in law. It's been created that it can be used as a defence if an employer is pushing you to a schedule, right? Rather than not having a defence and there not being a defence in law. But it's not explicitly giving them privilege, right? Although their proper official servants do get privilege, but not just persons there making use of, from time to time or on occasion to occasion, right? So that's interesting, very, very interesting, because what happens if someone to Parliament did get a taxi and told them to hurry up, or anyone? So if they thought, well, if a Parliament person or a House of Lords member tells the coachman to hurry up and then they get done for speeding or whatever, then and it can be used in a defence, and they've got a defence, and then they might have thought, well, it's not. They're not privileged, but seeing though we've got a defence for that situation now, why not have it for everyone? If everyone is ordered or commanded or told to do it, and that really is the basis in the Road Traffic Act or the Road Traffic Regulation Acts. That's meant to be the defence that most comes relevant if you're a driver for a career, if you're a professional driver, if you've got a job, if you're a delivery driver, if you're driving to a schedule, if your employer tells you that you've got to deliver these and be back for a certain time, right? Or if you get delayed and you're not going to be back in time and your employer phones you up, and says, get back now, right? But that defence is never given. It is extremely rarely given. You got to pay someone like Nick Freeman or Freeman and Co to go in there and pay him about $5,000 to get that, and Freeman won't even turn up for $5,000. He'll just get some contracted barrister out, and they won't be very good. You might win, but it's not exactly like you waltz in there and just reel it off. I've seen better duty solicitors. But we're not allowed to have duty solicitors for driving charges. That's the thing. We're not allowed to have duty solicitors who can deal with it there and then. So magistrates extremely rarely give that defence or allow it, unless you beg for it, and you got to turn up in person and get on your hands and knees on the floor and beg for it, and I mean, if you send the documents in on the schedule and make a representation, a declaration or whatever, or even your employer does, by post, they're not going to give you it, these magistrates deal with a lot of driving cases because driving cases are the most frequent than any other case, so that they would know that. They would not know that law. If you're on the magistrate circuit for any number of years, you would not know that, and if you didn't, then you're not law worthy. So that's quite interesting to find that little bit in here. But with Suella Braverman, you see, she's driving herself. See, Suella Braverman MP doesn't have a servant driving for her like Noel Gallagher does. She was driving, right? So what happens, if she's not driving to Parliament, Well, the thing is, this is the thing. If she is driving to Parliament, or on her way to Parliament, or on her way back, or going to see a constituent, like in surgery, or doing an investigation for Parliament, or anything in the mesne process of Parliament, right? Then she is entitled to drive and use a driving license because it's privileged. So how can but according to this, she wouldn't be privileged if she was driving, to Brighton, to go sunbathing on the beach or whatever, or to get an ice cream. So, but really, in theory, the police can't really take a driving license off her to drive to Parliament and back, because she's got that privilege. So, I mean, the way I look at it for Suella Braverman is that she cannot be prosecuted for driving to Parliament and back or for parliamentary business, right? And they can't stop her using her licence for that, regardless of whether they take it or give it away. Now, if they can't stop her from driving to and from Parliament, right, then what's the point in taking a driving licence off her, right? Or they could take a driving licence off her, but she can still drive to go back to Parliament and not, because they can't prosecute her for driving that vehicle for that purpose. She can't be prosecuted for driving without a licence, right? So, I mean, you can do it either way, but I don't think they can stop her from doing that. And another thing in this book is it definitely says speedy, specifically the words in this, and this is like, 1643 or whatever, it's like speedily attendance of Parliament. So, it has got the word speedy in there as well, which I thought was quite novel. So, that's an interesting thing about it. I'm not quite sure what the solution is for it, but I would say that, I mean, if they want to take a driving licence off her, but this is the thing, what were other points for? At what point were they all just on their own personal private business? Maybe you would have thought, actually, if what I would do, this is my solution for it, which is quite a simple solution, right? If you get elected as an MP, right, and you've already got a driving license, which means that, you know how to drive, you're not like, you've never been in a car before, you don't even know how to turn the ignition on or anything like that, We're talking like, people who have been taught how to drive and who already are a driving license holder, right? It's not like, you're taking it away because you've been naughty or been punished or whatever like that. Like, you've been taught how to drive and know how to drive, right? Well, what I'd have done is, and they might have this might be secret, they could have all this, but I doubt it, though, with that Suella Braverman story, because, apparently she was going having to fish around with the Privileges Committee asking if they could get some help, so they probably don't have anything secret, I wouldn't have thought, which is that, why don't they just have a special driving licence for MPs, If you've got a driving licence, if you can drive, right, if you've been, when you get elected to Parliament, and sworn in, why don't they just give you a Parliament driving licence, right? Which is privileged, and then you keep that for as long as you are a member, right? And that means that if they take your driving licence away from you, your normal one, then you still got the Parliament one, right? Now, if you're using that for Parliament business, like getting to or from Parliament, going to see a constituent or going to do some research or whatever, then they can prosecute you for driving, right? Because it's privileged licence, right? So, you've got some, if you're an MP, you can still drive into Parliament and drive back home, and you can still go meet constituents, and then it might encourage them to do more work, because then they can't go anywhere for themselves. They can't, like Matt Hancock, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. They can't, go off to Australia in the jungle, or drive around Australia. Because if Matt Hancock lost his driving licence, right, for speeding or something, right, and he only had a parliamentary one, if he fucked off to, Australia, he won't be able to drive because he won't have a driving licence, and what would be using a Parliament driving licence for in Australia? Unless if he's not the minister for, if he's not on diplomatic mission to Alderaan or something, if he's not, if he's not, Minister for Foreign Relations or whatever you call it, so he won't be able, he won't be driving around Australia in Bermuda shorts, playing beach volleyball, would he? Because he won't have a driving licence, so he couldn't drive there. Because it would only be for England for seeing constituents. Obviously, you could probably have one for diplomats, but that would solve it, that whole Suella Braverman problem. And then obviously, if they lose their seat or in a general election or whatever, then you have to hand it back in, or whatever. Why not? I mean, that to me seems the solution. It seems quite obvious, I don't know why they didn't think of that. I don't think they had thought of it because clearly, why would Suella Braverman not have already had it? Why would she have been asking for help unless she wanted, unless it was a proper driving licence that she wanted to keep for her own business? But the thing is, if an MP did lose a driving licence, for example, and they could only, see constituents, they might want to put some more time in, they might, I'll go, get out of the house, stretch my legs, I'll go to, I'll do some extra surgeries, or, I'll turn up in Parliament more and do some more voting, I'll turn up and vote more, it's like rather than the chamber being empty, it's like, actually, I'll go to that debate, I'll go to that committee meeting, or, actually, I'll go and vote on Tuesday, I'm just gonna, go look for some paperwork or go see somebody in the surgery. But what I'll do is I'll get my assistant to meet you in the surgery, seeing that, I've got to put a team together and I've got some staff, I mean, you don't have to meet Michael Jackson, you don't have to meet, you don't have to meet Philip Schofield in person, you could just meet your secretary, this is the thing. He doesn't have to be, whoever, doesn't have to be, Philip Schofield or, Sir David Attenborough or whoever it is, you don't have to meet the star, you just, I thought you're going in to, get some, tell them, meet them in person, so, the whole point of having a surgery is, there's someone there that you can meet and speak to, and then they can write down. It's a lot better to get it across in person rather than just in an email, or to go through it in detail. And then obviously if the MP's in Parliament, then you see, this is what he's hinting at is, this is what William Prin's hinting at. He's hinting at that, if you can't make it to Parliament or get there, then people have voted and they elected someone and they've got a right to have representation. That's the point. If you've elected someone, you've got the right, to have representation for your constituency in Parliament. So, if Mancock's out in the fucking jungle having a party on holiday, for his selfish self, then, so at least, they went and voted, so they deserve to have someone there who can vote, who can be there to vote in the chamber, and there should be someone in the surgery. But what are they putting the team together for? It's like, what are these teams that they put together? So Jack Rankin, I'm putting a team together. I'm putting a team together, right? Great. So but if I'm not there, then the team's pointless. If Zoe Ball can't make it onto the stage, then the show can't continue. It can't go ahead. Without the star of the show. If Jeremy Vine can't be there, they'll have to tell the old programme, have to, this broadcast will not be continuing like COVID lockdown, just blank screen, I'll put some cartoons on, it's not like, oh, Jeremy can't be here today, so, we're going to have, someone else instead. Philip Schofield, you have Jeremy can't be here today, so I'm sorry, but you have to have Philip Schofield instead. Like the BBC, if Steve Wright was never there, they always used to have someone else, so it's Terry Wogan instead, This is the thing, and this is what William Prince hinting at, that, MPs who just, go busybodying around and aren't actually fulfilling the role, like Matt Hancock, and they're more interested in their own celebrity lifestyle or, their own celebrity business. This is the thing, if Suella Braverman lost a driving licence, but she had a special driving licence, for Parliament, then, and she couldn't go to Brighton or whatever, then maybe she might put some more hours in this, volunteer some more hours to see some more constituents, or, go to the library more often to, turn up at Parliament in the library to do some more research, or go to Kew Gardens or whatever it is. This is the thing. So, things like that would be more encourageable to do more work. But anyway, it states here basically that, the cab driver's not covered by it, just because they're driving them somewhere, which is clearly evident why they invented that clause in modern law for a defence. If as a kind of like consolation prize, if an MP's calls a cab and demands that you race him to Parliament urgently, then at least you've got a defence in law that exists. So that's problem solved. But they don't get privilege unless it's like their full-time chauffeur, or it's kind of like, chauffeur stroke servant thing, which is does chauffeuring and the rest of it, But the thing is, like, Mesny process. So obviously the MPs and covered for Mesny process, which is why in an election when you've got like your declared agent, why they get to declare a vehicle, because they get to declare the vehicle and the candidate and the agent, and they've got to declare the vehicle is for the purposes of that campaign. You see, that's in the Representation of the People Act. There is something about vehicles, and the vehicle has to be identified to declare it as the vehicle being used for the campaign. So that possibly could be privilege as well, but I don't want to go into that too much. But it's worth noting because it's sort of Mesny processing it for the campaign. But there are election campaign offences which can be done by citizens or candidates, and it depends on whether it's covered with agency or not. But it can get quite complicated because I've just been looking into it. But police, policing is criminal law Mesny process. That's what policing is. Policing is the Mesny process of criminal law. And they've got the stuff that they can do. If you want to challenge it, there's nothing stopping you from bringing. But who prosecutes them? We've got the Crown Prosecution Service don't prosecute the police. No one's got any money. No one can. You could challenge the police all the time. And stuff. You could try to prosecute them. And then you bring the legislation in. Was the vehicle being used for the purpose of which it was being claimed for at the time? and so forth. It can get complicated. But, that's a riddle, that, if it would hinder the progress of the vehicle for the purpose for which it is being used, the speed limit doesn't have to be observed. So, that there is no, you don't have to observe any speed limit at all. So there isn't a particular speed that you have to stick to or drive at. And what purpose? The purpose for which it's been used. What is the purpose? So that particular law is a first prize riddle, because it basically effectively riddles out. It's debatable. There is no. As long as basically they were doing police business and they had to get somewhere. This is when you get that Bob Hoyle who was racing around Bradford. Like he was tearing around Bradford, like woo woo woo. But then they got on the radio, like go to John Street, and then he's on his way to John Street, and then they get on the radio, woo. He's like racing through Bradford, like a fucking loose cannon, and then like he's not even got there yet, and then they get on the radio, no, go Johnson Street. It's like, oh, I'm on my way, no, they've got something more important to do now. Go Johnson Street. It was like, all right, turns around, there's like a fucking 180 handbrake in the road, and then he's like tearing there at 500 mile an hour, and then someone else goes on the radio and goes, no, go to like Knutsford Road, and he's like, yeah, but I'm off on my way to this other place now. No, forget that, fuck that. Go, they've got something else now, and there's an house on fire. Moran Street, or I'll go there. Like fucking hell, I haven't got anywhere yet. He said, I've been tearing around Bradford for an hour and I ain't even gone anywhere yet, So, well, what purpose is this vehicle being used for? Oh, I'm in hot pursuit of what? It was actually, if a member of the public wanted to take him to court and say, well, those last destinations, apparently, what was, they didn't need, did they need to go there at the time? Or could it be proved that actually, he wasn't going to any of them because he didn't get there? At what point can you prove that he wasn't going anywhere? He didn't actually get anywhere, So therefore, on the basis of the fact that the police kept breaking their commitments, he wasn't actually committed to going anywhere. In the end, this is the thing. I'd like to see some test cases with that, but it's not privilege of Parliament because he's got the jurisdiction of West Yorkshire. He can't he can't do it outside West Yorkshire, I don't think, unless it's liaison, but I don't think they're covered when they go over the borderline. They can do some liaison work, but I'm not too sure if it has to, if you've got to do the paperwork for it or not. But they're not meant to. They've only got a particular jurisdictive authority, kind of like a little bit like on Dukes of Hazzard, when we go past the over the county border, and then sheriff's out of jurisdiction or whatever. So, all depends what the purpose is. But I just thought that little bit was quite novel here, because it really, really is an enlightening moment for that. The creation, it gives an incentive for the creation of the clause in the modern law, which we never get granted, which hardly anyone gets granted, or when they turn up by themselves to try and represent, unless you pay someone $5,000 to go do it for you. It rarely gets used.